Kia ora tātou, welcome back to the Wargaming Den. Another game of Kings of War, surprise surprise. This week's game sees an Ogre versus Ogres bash. The mission we're going to be playing is loot, points we're going to be playing is 2,000 points. No Surrender is an upcoming Kings of War weekend in Christchurch next month, so Gordon and I just wanted to start testing out some of the options that we're considering. I'm looking at taking the Varangur again, but I'm also considering taking my Ogres, so I thought I'd give my Ogres a run, which was a bit of a surprise to Gordon. He was expecting my Varangur, so let's have a look and see how the game goes tonight. Right, let's have a look at my Ogre army. This is pretty similar to my standard Ogre army. I haven't used it much in the last year or so, but it's got a balance that I like to it. I've got a shooter horde. I just like the piercing too, and it always installs a bit of fear in the opponent. A hunter horde with the brew of haste. Become a bit of a fan of the hunters, more of started playing the game and really started to understand how things work. Now this is a unit that I like taking that's probably not that popular, is a regiment of boomers. And I do that because if I take a boomer regiment and a boomer sergeant, it's exactly the same points as a boomer horde. Sure, it doesn't unlock, but it gives me two units. It's a bit cheaper than taking two regiments of boomers. They work out about 280 points. So it just gives me a flexibility in the list I actually quite like. They act as chaff and screen, and actually can move forward, have a blast at the enemy, and then get run over, ideally. Warrior Regiment, these are pretty standard in most Ogre lists these days as they unlock. I find them really, really solid with their nerve 12, 14, 9 attacks. They seem to punch above their weight more often than they probably should, which is very handy. Ever since I started playing Ogres, I've always taken two Siegebreaker hordes. One day I'll wean myself off them, but they just perform so well game after game. I've taken a chariot regiment, get a bit of extra speed. One of the things my Ogres are lacking, apart from the hunters, is speed. So that gives me another move 8 unit. Two sergeants with crossbows. They're quite popular now that they've got elite and steady aim on their crossbows, hitting on 5s, but they are a very, very useful unit, and I prefer using them to berserker bullies. I know the berserker bullies are popular for good reason, but two sergeants usually do me proud. I've already mentioned the boomer sergeant, 90 points. He doesn't inspire, so he's often overlooked for another warlock. For 5 points more, you get lightning bolt and inspiring, but I find him a very handy little chaff piece. He can turn around and blast things with his 8 scattered gun dice. If he wants to, he can block and get in the way of units. He's just a good, handy little piece to have on the board. And then the warlocks, probably still slightly undercosted, 95 points with inspiring and lightning bolt. They're damn handy. One of them's got, well, they've both got lightning bolt. One of them's also got drain life and an amulet of the fire heart, so can cast drain life and lightning bolt together on one turn only. The warlocks are very, very solid, and I can see why people prefer them over the boomer sergeant, but I always try and get a bit of a toolkit list in my armies, and I think I've got a bit of everything to cover most of my bases. It's got some good solid units with the Siegebreakers and the chariots. It's got some really useful characters there, and it's got quite a bit of chaff. The boomers, the warrior regiment, the sergeants, the boomer sergeant, the warlocks, they're all chaff in the right circumstances. And to tell you the truth, so are the Siegebreakers when push comes to shove. So that's my army tonight. I think it's pretty solid. It's got 12 units and 22 units strength. Now let's have a look at Gordon's Ogre list, and it is very, very different to mine. He's taken Hell on Wheels and pushed it as far as you can go in this particular direction. I think everything in his army, apart from the Crocodile Wrangler, is some form of chariot based unit, which is a pretty cool theme to have. So he's got two chariot hordes. They hit like trucks, 20 attacks, crushing strength and thunderous 2. Means that they are pretty scary on the charge, but they've got a pretty wide footprint. So my plan is to try and chap them up if I can. He takes 2 Boomer Chariot troops. This is one area in my list where I was humming and hawing whether to go for a Boomer Chariot troop or that Boomer Regiment. I've gone for the Boomer Regiment in the end, but I can see why the Boomer Chariot troops are very, very popular. They give a stealthy aura which protects against shooting, and they're fast as well. They've got an 8-inch move, so they can actually be thrown in as chaff if need be as well. 2 Goblin Blasters that Gordon is very good at keeping alive and screening them as much as he can, and he knows that I'm going to target them if I get the opportunity. 2 Sergeants on Chariots and the Crocodile Wrangler. Gordon's a big fan of the Wrangler. I haven't actually used one. I prefer the Boomer Sergeant. Performs a slightly different role. Now, the question for everyone listening out there: does Gordon's Crocodile Wrangler ignore all ogres or just his ogres with their special rule? Be pretty annoying to see one run straight through my Siegebreakers and get a tasty warlock hidden in behind or something random like that. I know it probably doesn't work like that, but they're the kind of little idiosyncrasies that games like Kings of War sometimes throw at you. So yeah, we've had a chat and decided that that's just ridiculous. That only affects his own units. Then he's got the Hell on Wheels formation, the Warlord on Chariot with the Orb of Towering Presence, which gives him unit strength 2, and the 2 Chariot regiments, and they get Rampage or Slayer D3, so they pack a bit more of a punch. He's got 12 units, 21 unit strength. He wants to hit me as hard as he can. The thing that's going to slow him down potentially is getting in the way of each other with their chariots, because they're on big bases, but he's used this army quite a bit, so it'll be interesting to see how our 2 very different takes on the ogre list fare tonight. Right, and let's have a look at tonight's deployment. Now, I think this is a Shroud of the Reaper map. It's a bit different to some we've tended to use. We're playing loot, so there's an objective there, an objective in the middle, and I chucked one here by the wood because, as you can see, my hunters are right there and they want to run in there and grab it. These 2 buildings constrict lines of sight, so as Gordon pointed out later, if he did deploy over here, he's probably only ever going to get 1 regiment of chariots through that bottleneck point. So it was a bit of he decided it was a bit of a trap. We've got more woods there, hills and hills, so not that open with a big horde of chariots. There's lots of terrain that's going to block the ebb and flow of some of his units. So I was actually surprised. I thought Gordon was going to deploy at least half his units over here and just take this one and swing around, but as he said, that choke point there put him off doing that. So he decided he was going to beat me at my own game. And so we were both just fighting over these 2 objectives here, that there was just going to be a big brawl in the middle to all purposes. So my side have got the chariots. I put the Boomer Regiment in behind. As soon as I did that, I thought, why did I do that? He's got no shooting to speak of. He's got no spell casting, so I didn't need to hide back there, but I'd already done it. So there you go. Warlock beside them. He can get powered up by the Boomers and the Hunters with his Lightning Bolt. Hunters are in front of the wood to go directly forward, use their ensnare, and make life difficult for anyone coming into that area. Shooters are behind a hill here. I was a bit tempted whether to go out wide here or not, but in the end I decided if I can get them onto that hill, get some long range shooting and some good fields of fire, and I was going to put some characters in front to act as chaff and protect them if I could. Both Siegebreakers nearby. I've got the Warrior Regiment. Again, they're going to march forward. They're going to hopefully take that initial charge and then leaves my Siegebreakers to countercharge. Sergeant out wide here to offer a bit of support. Another Sergeant and Warlock. Again, all these guys, Sergeant, Warlock, Sergeant, they're all extra chaff. So really, 1, 2, 3, 4 units I consider chaff in front of the 3 units I want to protect there. Now, once we got our deployment, Gordon actually forgot to deploy his Crocodile Wrangler. He chucked him on halfway through turn 1. He was like, oh shit, forgot about that little guy. But after he deployed out there was absolutely nothing going for this objective. So my last deployment was my little 90-point boomer sergeant was going to go and claim an objective all by himself, and if that's all he got to do all game, he would be good and happy. Now, Gordon had some terrain that was going to be funneling and impacting on his charges, etc. So he's got chariot regiment in here. They're going to be hindered going into there. The boomer chariots nearby to offer the stealthy aura, and that's the warlord there. Chariot horde, that's got a nice clear arc. But they're starting in terrain themselves. The other chariot horde, again starting in the open or nearly in the open, but they're going to move out into that open kill zone. He's got the other boomer chariots and the chariot regiment with the 2 sergeants in there supporting, and hidden back here the 2 blasters to come out later on. My job is to try and get on the hill and lightning bolt the blasters if I can. So the terrain's probably not doing Gordon too many favours. The only terrain that I'm really happy with is the woods here, protects me quite nicely, but I think I can use this hill to my advantage as well. So let's move on, have a look at turn 1, eh? Right, so just before we do begin, just from another angle, this is the deployment. So the terrain is constricting here. That's quite narrow as well. That works in my advantage. That works in my advantage. The boomer sergeant's got a free run at present unless he decides to chase him down with a stealth chariot or something like that. The hill is in a handy position for me, so quite a good dice roll, I think, to have won for sides. I'm not sure what Gordon would have done if roles were reversed, but yeah, again, concentrating forces, and I think for me and probably also Gordon, this is a key to using our ogre armies, is we only want to fight on half the table. We're going to go for 2 out of 3 objectives and try and win those, and more often than not ignore one. If you go for all of the objectives, you stretch yourself too thin, I've found quite frequently, and that lets the mobility of more mobile armies cut you to pieces. So whenever possible, I try and do quite a narrow deployment and try not to use more than half or 2/3 of the table if I can avoid it. Go, right, I'm going to win this one and I'm going to win this one. You're welcome to that. But as it turned out, we both wanted the same 2 objectives. Okay, turn 1, I won the dice roll and went first. Let's have a look and see what I did. I just moved onto the hill really with the shooters so that they could have some pot shots. There's a stealth bubble here, but I tried to hit the stealth chariots, and then units that couldn't hit those fired lightning bolts and maybe some sergeants to try and put some damage on that horde there. So not a great deal of action. My boomers advanced. I advanced into the woods here. I did not measure that distance though, and found myself in range of the boomer chariots. Now, the one thing I get wrong, and it's just the way my brain works, I always forget that the chariots are height 4 and our hills are height 3, so the chariots can peek over the top. For some reason, I keep thinking maybe it's because I don't use enough chariots that I'm going to be hidden or they're going to be hidden, and then Gordon pops over and goes, surprise! So let's have a look and see how that unfolds on Gordon's turn. Yep, so as you can see, Gordon's pushed forward here into the tree line, so he's going to be hindered coming out of there. Both those units are going to be hindered when they come out. My little boomer sergeant's sneaking around over there, playing a game all by himself. These guys didn't move because, as you can see, it's just too congested that the woods and the hills are just funneling Gordon into the Valley of Death, hopefully. Warlord in behind. He's popped up onto the hill here with a sergeant, and he's got a chariot regiment nearby, and the crocodile wrangler is also snuck up here as well. But what he's done is he has, I think I think from memory, I did something like 5 or 6 wounds on the chariot, so he knew it wasn't going to survive another turn of shooting, so threw it in to try and disrupt my hunters, but only managed to get 2 wounds. Combination of being in the wood plus ensnare worked in my favour, which is why the hunters like lurking around in woods as much as they can. So that was the first turn. Just a wee bit of jostling and skirmishing, really, to start things off with. Okay, and on to my turn 2. Now, one thing I've noticed I'm really terrible at is I always forget to take a shot at the end of the movement, but before we do any firing, and it looks like I've forgotten to do it again. But what I'm wanting to try and do is take a shot at the end of the movement and then another one at the end of the combat, so I can see the difference. Didn't really achieve that here by the looks of it, but let's have a look. I've pushed the boomers forward, got them into range of the sergeant, and again I may have put 5 or 6 wounds on him and wavered him and probably hit him with the lightning bolt from there as well. I've got my chariots in behind, so if he does charge in here, I've got a counter punch ready to come back at him. And my hunters destroyed the chariots. That was, my 18 dice with crush 1 was likely outcome there. Shooters on the hill, I think, put a couple of wounds on one of the blasters back there, and I may have tried some other shooting as well. Don't think I did any more wounds at that one. Moved forward to screen here with my warrior regiment, and see I've got another layer of chaff here with my 2 sergeants and with my warlock. This is the one with drain life as well, and then I've got my Siegebreakers lined up behind. One's on the hill to charge off that. The hunters, the shooters are on the hill as well. I was hoping to try and draw these chariots to me, but actually the sergeant was in range as well. So Gordon's got a few options. He could charge out at these guys and they get counter-charged. He could try and take out the sergeant. He's got the shooters here, the boomer chariot guys, and I've actually given him some tasty little flanks as well, unintentionally, but he's got more options than I thought, and I think I'm even just getting into charge range here as well. So let's see how he deals with my attempt to slow him down with chaff. Or we might just pause to have another look from the lines from the position of my troops. It's about to get messy very, very soon. Now, Gordon, as he usually does, caught me by surprise with a couple of his things. I actually thought he was going to throw more stuff in at the Warriors, but he actually charged at the sergeant with this chariot regiment. He got the regiment. He charged them with, I think that is the horde from there to there, and this is the warlord here. So there's 27 dice, most of them hindered coming in there. And the other thing he did, very sneaky move, the boomer chariots were in, just had the flank of my sergeant here, so they came swooping round and hit him in the flank as well. Blaster came rolling forward to do some damage, and he retreated the wavered sergeant back 4 inches. That left this sergeant peeking over the hill, able to charge in and try and chaff up my hunters as well. And he threw the chariot regiment in here, but luckily, great positioning through luck rather than good management by me meant that he just clipped the wood and was hindered. And another little trick he did that I wasn't expecting, but it was another good move, is the Crocodile Wrangler used his nimble to zip around here and chaff up my what are they? They're my chariot regiment. So, yep, there's a bit of a chaff war going on here, but we're on turn 2 and we're already locked in some pretty heavy fighting. Let's see how some of these combats turned out. Okay, and this is just after we've actually started the combat phase, but what happened is Gordon charged these chariots into my sergeant, wavered him, we'll get to that in a minute, charged in here, did 4 wounds against my warrior regiment, charged with the chariots and also with the warlord. Great move here. I'd offered a smidgen of a flank to that sergeant that was spotted from over here, so the chariots came roaring down here. They had 16 attacks from the flank, did 5 wounds on him, charged in here with the sergeant and sent the crocodile wrangler in there. So a couple of really good moves from Gordon in there. Let's have a look at the end of the combat phase, see how it all turned out. Right, and as you can see here, very unlucky, he wavered my sergeant. 7 wounds, +1 for the brutal. I think he rolled high on the first roll and must have got about a 5 on the second roll, so I only wavered him. Destroyed my regiment in here. Not that surprised by that one. This was a bit of a surprise though. He didn't waver or kill my sergeant, even though I had 16 dice and only needed 3s to wound. Thought he should have got me there, but unlucky. Over here he did the 2 wounds there, and the crocodile came in and did 3 wounds there. So not a bad turn, but a wee bit unlucky there for Gordon. Okay, and this is what I'm trying to do. Have a photo at the end of the movement and then see what happens after that. So what did we do? I moved back here with my wavered sergeant. We don't use the 1-inch withdrawal rule anymore. So these guys, I think these guys charged him first, were able to just swing enough and just get towards the end of the chariot horde, and then they kind of shuffled across into position, and that meant that my other Siegebreakers had a line to hit these chariots in the flank as well. Where'd my sergeant go? Aha! This is where my sergeant went. Just enough room to get through there. So he did his yippee, I'm nimble, came through here and got those chariots in the side. I think it was about 11-inch move that he did. So a few months ago, I probably wouldn't have spotted that opening. So I think I am getting a bit better at the game. Yep, it was 3 wounds on my chariots before. They're locked up with the crocodile. Just continuing to fight with the sergeant here, but he's going to be ensnared when he fights me. And I've got 18 dice, so I'm hoping that's going to work in my favour. But I'm really happy to get 10 flank attacks in here. It does mean, however, that I haven't had anyone take on that Goblin Blaster. And last game, or a couple of games ago, they absolutely smeared a Chimera. So I need to try and take care of that with as much shooting as I can. So let's have a look and see how that was all resolved. Okay, let's start here. 36 dice from the flanks from those Siegebreakers, smeared the chariot regiment, put a few wounds, maybe 8 or 9 onto the horde here. Didn't kill it, meant that I'm going to be hitting the flank probably by a warlord. There's 14 dice there, and there's another 20 dice coming at me from there. But wait and see. There's going to be a very cunning move, I think, from Gordon in his turn 3. I didn't do anything from memory with the chariots here. I ignored them. I shot, I think the lightning bolted, and the the blaster from here. I completely forgot to shoot with these guys. I was going, yep, shooting, yep, yep, shooting, and then halfway through Gordon's turn, it was like, oh crap, I forgot to shoot them. My bad. And that's why I ended up putting this dice here to remind myself to shoot with the shooters next turn. Again, I got really lucky with my wavering rolls. Gordon will tell you the last couple of weeks, my nerve test rolls have just been out of sight, and my sergeant here managed to put a few wounds on that chariot regiment and then destroyed it. And same, my chariots destroyed the crocodile wrangler. So that all went in my favour. Few wounds here, can't remember how many. Didn't waver that guy, but yeah, chariots gone, blaster gone, chariot regiment gone. So that was a big turn for me. Let's see how Gordon's going to respond to that. Now, Gordon, being Gordon, has always got a cunning plan in mind. So, as expected, he went in the flank here. What I didn't expect, though, and was a brilliant move, is here I've got those chariots in the front. But what Gordon has managed to do through clever shenanigans is actually hit me in the flank here. So there's 40 dice coming at me there. And that's because of the new slide across rule, which I always forget about, don't take into consideration. I've got to get better at spotting it like Gordon does. I think it's a brilliant rule. I really like it, even when it means that my siege breakers are facing 40, 60, 74 dice. So the odds of them surviving are pretty remote. He's also thrown in his boomer chariots at my warlock here. He's decided to retreat with the sergeant here rather than carry on the combat to try and just slow me down a bit. And he's thrown that other sergeant that had spent the turn wavered, has charged in here at my chariots, and the second blaster has started to move forward as well. So everything pretty much is committed at this stage. Let's see how the dice fall for Gordon. And just before we do look at the results, just another look at how much trouble those siege breakers are actually in. The only thing that's going to potentially save me, I think, is the mythical double one. Wouldn't that be ironic? But let's take a look, see how much damage they actually take from this. Yep, that's right. 38 wounds. Ouch. And no, I didn't get a double one. I think he actually rolled a 3, which was just taking the piss, if you ask me. But yes, they well and truly got their asses kicked in that particular combat. Well done, Gordon. That was a great move. Right. Apparently, this is the bottom of turn 3. So, yep, he took out the whoever they were, the siege breakers got flattened there. This guy was just able to sneak his way back this way from memory. Wavered my warlock. This is just the world's most unlucky boomer chariot troop. Again, 16 dice at me. Again, only 5 wounds and a wavering. Very, very unlucky. Nothing there. I think, what am I up to there? Maybe 5 or 6. So only a couple more wounds on these guys, and they weren't wavered there. So I think I'm in a pretty good position. Hopefully I can hit this guy. What else can I do? These guys are in a good flanking position as well. The hunters are good. So let's have a look at turn 4. Right, what do? I charge the warlord. I'm just in his front, so that's good for Gordon. These 7 wounds actually belong to this guy over here. I get sneaky. At the end of that last turn, Gordon unfortunately spotted that my sergeant was only about 11 inches away from this regiment. I was really hoping, this horde, and they're on about 9 wounds. So I was really hoping to catch him by surprise, but no, he's not going to fall for those tricks of mine. So he just turned to face my sergeant there. My shooters charged the whatever they are, the boomer chariots there, and they probably should move across. I'm not sure why they haven't, but apparently they haven't. This may be before I charged in here, but I'm pretty sure I charged that guy as well, and then these guys charged him. So and this guy this guy moved around to try and get an angle. He didn't have any charges from where he started from, and wanted to try. And I think I wanted to try and shoot these guys to put some wounds on them if I could, but I think I probably missed. Now, and what are we doing here? Now, I just remembered something. Why did I kill that chariot before? It wasn't because of my sergeant got the world's jammiest dice rolls. What actually happened, now that I remember it, is that the crocodile wrangler died, and I was going to reposition. Gordon reminded me that it was an individual. Thanks, Gordon. Then I rolled a 5 with the chariots. The chariots charged into the chariot. So suddenly this chariot regiment took 15 dice in the front, 10 dice from the flank. That's why it died. So if Gordon hadn't have been playing, a sporting game, which I always appreciate, I had completely forgot, because I don't use crocodile wranglers and I'm not used to ogres having individuals, completely forgot about that overrun rule. So he pointed that out to me, let me do that. Didn't expect me to roll a 5 or a 6 or whatever I needed, and that was just the way the dice fell all night really for me. But again, a really sporting move by Gordon, which is why his chariots died. Looks like I've wavered this guy here with my chariots. The hunters took care of the sergeant. These guys didn't do anything because they're wavered, but those shooters, not surprisingly, took care of the boomer chariots. And over here, put a few more wounds on these guys. Wavered the warlord over here. And unfortunately, I think what it means is that I have blocked these guys quite nicely, unless people, you are Gordon and can come up with a cunning plan to get yourself out of danger. And more often than not, he will come up with a cunning plan. But again, a really solid turn for me. Very happy with where things are sitting now. I can grab that objective with my hunters. This one I'm sitting on with my sergeant. The one over there, my boomer sergeant's been sitting around all day holding that. No one's come near him, so I've got that one. So I'm feeling like things are under control currently. God damn it, Gordon, you've done it again. I don't know how he does this to me game after game. He just comes up with the most outrageous counter moves and gets himself out of trouble more often than not. And this was actually a brilliant move. Now, the Warlord Chariot is 10 centimeters long. This guy has a 4-inch withdraw out of combat move. Remember, as I said earlier, we're not using that 1-inch withdraw thing. We don't use that anymore. It's optional, I think. So what happened is, because an inch is 2.54 centimeters and he can move back 4 inches, that means that through the wonders of maths, he's got about an extra 16 mil gap on, because this is another, that's another 4-inch base there. So what he did, he moved back the full 4-inch move with the Warlord Chariot, which meant that these guys were just able to squeeze and clip this guy and then use the align rule to just sneak across that far. And I thought, bloody hell, Gordon, that is a clever move. Very well played, sir. Very well played. Countercharged my sergeant here. Aha! Sent in the blaster against my hunters. But I do have the advantage of some cover, and that guy's wavered. So let's see what the results of those combats were. Right, and this is why I like Siegebreakers. They only took 5 wounds. That defense 6 from the front is very, very nice. He was wavered, couldn't do anything. These guys killed my sergeant, 120 points to tie them up. I think that's called chaffing the opponent. Thank you for teaching me that game after game after game after game after game, Gordon. I'm finally getting the hang of it. Nothing happening there. Unlucky here. The blaster failed to hit at all, so didn't blow himself up, didn't blow me up, just stood there going, uh-oh, this is going to hurt. The hunters are going to come back at him with 18 dice. And that guy couldn't do anything because he was wavered. So that was the end of turn 4. So things, I think, have well and truly swung my way, because I've got chariot, hunters, shooters, I've got my Siegebreakers, and then I've got 1, 2, 3 handy characters. Oh, there's one hidden way over there to give me a 4th character. Right, let's have a look at the end of my turn 5. So things are not looking good for Gordon. Took out both units of chariots with the shooters and the Siegebreakers. Charged in here, wavered that guy. He was wavered as well. So all as Gordon could do on his turn 5 was back up. And at that point I said, there's no real point doing a turn 6. I'm just going to kill one or both of them, and that'll be the end of it. So there we have it. Managed to see off that charge by the various units. As always, a fun game. Hard game. Gordon said as much going into it. Just the way the terrain was made it really difficult for him. Terrain here, terrain here, terrain here. None of that terrain did him any favours. The buildings over here constricting the other opportunity as well meant that he definitely was funneled in here, and with the base sizes of his army, very hard for him to deal with. But that being said, he caught me out with 2 or 3 great moves as always. You can never underestimate Gordon. I'll take a win any way I can get them against him. I do feel though that I'm improving and not making as many mistakes. I think critical point of the game was over here when I charged and killed the crocodile wrangler, and he reminded him that he was an individual and that I could follow up. And I got jammy. I got jammy on a lot of nerve checks on this game. I rolled a 5 and crashed into the chariots and destroyed them as well. So it's sporting things like that that I think make all the difference in the game as well. That you want to let your opponent aware of what your units are or can do. I completely forgot that the crocodile wrangler is an individual. I don't use them, and I'm not used to any individuals in my ogre army, so I didn't even think twice about it. Really enjoyed this army. I think it's one of the more solid armies. I like the balance between the fighting and the hard heavy hitting units, and the chaff works well as well. So I'm seriously considering taking this to no surrender, but I do want to have a couple of games with the Varangur as well. So yeah, look forward to having another game in the next couple of weeks. Hope you've enjoyed this battle report. I've thoroughly enjoyed putting it together. It's great looking back over from the photos what was going on in the game from my point of view, trying to remind myself of where I could improve in future. So I'm always learning something. And yeah, as I said, it's always good to come away with a win against Gordon because he makes you work very hard for them and does all he can to avoid losing. And as you saw there was 2 or 3 really great moves that he did that could have come off a wee bit better for him. So I've had a couple of weeks of really good dice rolls on nerve checks. I don't think that's going to continue for too much longer, but I look forward to having another game in another week or so. I hope you've enjoyed the report. Let me know if you liked this slightly different way of doing things, but that's all for tonight. So thank you very much for watching, and ka kite anō. Take care.